Hey guys, what's up? I'm High, and I want to share a little twist to the Angels deck that I've been running lately, at least this season, and just kind of try to sell why I'm still on Angels and why I think this is a great choice for Explorer Best of One at least right now. So, just comparing the metagame right now, obviously the most familiar deck, one of the most common things going on right now, is the Grease Fang combo, where of course you're putting a 5/5 flyer into play that makes two more 4/4 angels. You're hitting for 13. Oftentimes turn 3, maybe even as fast as turn 2. But that's really what makes the deck so powerful and popular, is how quickly it can do its thing. Now with the actual Angels deck, I believe, well, not just believe, it's demonstratable, but the Angels deck can go well over the top of the Grease Fang deck. Because at its core, when the most powerful thing you can do with Angels is just simply more powerful than what the Grease Fang deck can do. They may be able to put two 4/4 just basic vanilla Angels into play, but we can potentially just generate multiple Angels per turn with Resplendent Angel and tons of life gain, as well as with Giada. Our Angels are just massive compared to theirs. Oftentimes you're getting 7/7, 8/8, 9/9, 10/10, as it were, whatever. Massive Angels, while their Angels are just smaller. So when both decks do their things, this actually absolutely just crushes the Grease Fang deck and goes over the top of it. Also, speaking of metagame, this deck is really good because we have tons of big fat flyers. So we're decent against the Spirits deck. It's a difficult matchup. They've got a lot of powerful tools as well. Make no mistake. But it's good to have a ton of flyers who can actually fight against that deck. And then against the other red aggro decks, we're just heavily favored. And these decks are extremely common all throughout the ranks of Best of One. The only time we're not favored is when they're running a life gain negating card or effect. But they generally, in Best of One, they're not running too much of that right now, just because running cards like that, they pay a heavy price because they're just pretty much useless. They're not very good against anything else other than Angels, which is the premier life gain deck of the format. So we got really good general matchups against the metagame right now, and I'll talk about the twist in the latest list I'm on in a moment. But just lastly, to cover the metagame, like I said, we're really good against a lot of things. We're not so good against control, of course. Got to keep it real, it's a difficult uphill battle. Collected Company is your best bet and a fast start, but control can be extremely difficult, especially if they get Supreme Verdicts or other board wipes. It can be hard to try to mount a comeback against that, or active Teferi, but many of the aggro decks struggle against control, besides like all-in, fast red aggro decks. So again, just to reiterate, we're really good against everything in the format right now. And we, again, the most premier deck we can just go over the top of, and we do even more powerful things. You're still going to lose to Grease Fang occasionally. That's just the breaks. That's just how it goes. But that's the luck of the draw, because we're not going to try to run a bunch of anti-graveyard stuff. At the end of the day, we are a Collected Company deck. So we can get into the deck again, just reiterate the cards. Lunarch Veteran, just our 1-drop to gain life every time we make a creature. We can also come back from the graveyard as a 1/1 flyer. We're not running the 1/1 lifelink cleric that can make Angels, which seems strange to not have that in this Angels deck. And don't get me wrong, that card is really good, but it's kind of just a win more card. I know that's weird, because it is similar to Resplendent Angel in the way that it allows you to create more Angels. But the problem is it's just kind of weak in the early game against a lot of the matchups. You can't even really attack or block with it because it's too precious. And there's just other creatures that are coming out too early that are going to make it so you can't really attack with it. So there are just better options exist, I believe. So kind of in its spot, I'm running Prosperous Innkeeper. Now, this does a lot in this deck, because if you've obviously been looking at Vito the whole time, that's kind of the big unveil, or so to speak. Not really a big unveil. If you've watched my previous videos, I've wanted to put this in a deck for a long time. And finally played a whole season with it and enjoying the results for sure. Pushing up into like top 500 Mythic here shortly with this build. But anyways, Vito is awesome in this deck. I'll cover him in detail in a bit, but just on the back to the Prosperous Innkeeper. So getting the treasure tokens is huge. So we can potentially get earlier collected companies, as well as just freeing up the mana base, because we have a very, very light splash in Vito, just 3 copies, only black card in the deck. But with Prosperous Innkeeper, it also, like I said, it's helping cast Vito, it's helping earlier collected companies, but it's also facilitating just more life gain. So it's another avenue to our primary sequence of play, which of course is we're just looking to cast, a veteran into a Bishop of Wings, followed by Resplendent Angel. That's the most busted thing we can do in order of operations, is try to get that online. But again, don't get me wrong, like, it's not that important to some extent how you order these cards, because there's so much synergy in the deck. There are pros and cons to like ordering, say, a Giada instead of a bishop, or a bishop before Giada. There's all kinds of subtle little pros and cons, and different reasons why you might go Innkeeper first if you're trying to line up collected companies. So in a vacuum, again, I'm trying to line up Veteran, Wings, and Resplendent Angel, but there's all kinds of subtle little differences to the way the game might be developing, where you might want to go Innkeeper first, try to hit an earlier company, or other instances where you maybe need to go Giada, because maybe you're locked on 2 mana and you just want to free up, so you don't get caught, screwed on 2 mana, so you can have 3 to cast a 3 casting cost creature on the 3rd turn. That might be one reason why you go Giada on the 2nd turn instead of these other creatures, because the deck really does want to curve out. But again, we just cover these 2 drops, so that's what the Innkeeper is doing. That's what he's all about in this deck. Back to one of my favorites, Trelasarra Moondancer. I'm on 3 copies. I'm absolutely in love with this card. I think it's extremely powerful and strong. But it is legendary, so I am respecting that now, and I have trimmed 1 copy to make room for some of these other spicy additions, as we'll see. But Trelasarra is huge in the deck. It's got the Cleric synergy, not an Angel, of course, which is a bummer, but it still has enough synergy in this deck that absolutely can rock out here. It's 2/2. You're gaining life, or whenever you do gain life, it's getting a +1/+1 counter, and more, even perhaps more importantly, you're scrying every time you do that. So there'll be times in the mirror match where you're just scrying to get to Ajani first, to use its ultimate to blow up all your opponent's creatures. And Trelasarra can help you find exactly that as fast as possible. In addition, we can talk about Vito now while we're talking about the mirror match, because Vito is just awesome in the mirror match. It's another corner to the deck where you can get a huge advantage, and I believe it makes the mirror match much more favored when you have this guy on your side. So much so that I am actually splashing black for a 3-color Absent deck just to run the 3 copies. So whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. That's the important thing. It's not just losing 1 life if you gain 10. It's losing that much life. So that means if you've got, Valkyries, Wings online, you're casting an Angel, you're gaining upwards of 8, 12 life, even more in a developed game. Just on 1 cast of an Angel, you're draining your opponent for 12. Look, there are times when you have a massive board state, you cast Collected Company, you make 2 large hits, and you just one-shot KO your opponent with a Vito one-shot drain life for the win. That is the most satisfying way to win with this deck. And speaking of just playing in autopilot, another thing that's awesome for just grinding the ladder at best of 1, this deck almost in a way just there's so much synergy, it feels like it just plays itself. I don't mean this in a bad way, but there's not a ton of interaction in decision making with timing and stuff per se, because we don't run a lot of instants. We're just kind of playing a lot of our stuff out generally at sorcery speed, and it's just so powerful by itself that there's so much synergy. Your opponent's getting blown out automatically. There aren't special triggers we have to hit, or decisions like that. We're just automatically gaining the life, getting the free Angels, and then once we have Vito online, it just adds that other dimension where we're just constantly draining the opponent. So it's really good in the mirror match. really good in general. Also, I'm respecting that it is legendary, however, so we are just running the 3 copies. We have a very light, just 8 black mana splash for the lands. So it's a very, very not huge commitment just to get this avenue and this dimension into the deck. I think it's absolutely worth it. I wouldn't be selling this if I didn't think it was, or I've already tested it and put up the results with a build like this. So I stand behind it. I think it's very strong. But let me just be absolutely clear. It's not as important as Resplendent Angel or Righteous Valkyrie by any means. These are the 2 MVP All-Stars of the deck. But it does add this really incredible unique element to the deck, that you're also able to cause your opponent not only just dealing damage in a different unique way, a different attack vector, but it's making them lose life. So there's that also. There's rare occurrence where you need a way to win around a 9 lives combo, which doesn't seem very prevalent in Explorer, but it is just another way around that combo, which is just more upside for Vito, Thorn, or the Dusk Rose. Also, not to be forgotten, you can grant everything lifelink on your team. It does actually come up from time to time and can mean the difference between winning or losing a game, getting lethal, gaining life, and causing your opponent to lose even more life. So be conscious when you're laying your lands out late. Make sure you get access to the 2 black that you need once you approach that 5 mana threshold. So Vito, Thorn, or the Dusk Rose is absolutely legit, I think. It's my opinion. Feel free to try it, but I wouldn't be here again trying to sell this if I didn't think it wasn't good. It's also just extremely fun to have this twist. So again, we've talked about a lot of these other things. Righteous Valkyrie, Resplendent Angel being the all-stars of the deck. Other things to talk about. If you haven't watched the previous Angel videos, be sure to check those out, where I talk about all these cards at just length. I'm trying to just do a condensed, quick version today. It's more of just an update, just kind of show this new Vito way of doing things. I couldn't give up green as well because Collected Company is far too strong. But also, I'm running just 2 Inspiring Overseers now. I don't want to go too heavy on these. These are kind of in here. You could kind of look at the only other non-4 copy things besides the Singleton, Ajani, is the legendary creatures. So they were trimmed 1 each, kind of in a way to add this Inspiring Overseer, which is just more grease really for the deck, just more card draw, more synergy. Nothing special, but it's just a solid, honest card. An angel, cleric, getting life, flies, just replaces itself. You don't want to, but I don't want to run 4 of these because I still think the absolute synergy is the best of just having these powerhouses and trying to get, just a few of these things to get that synergy going. Like, the deck doesn't want to see, 4 Vito, Thorn of the Dusk Rose in its hand. It doesn't, and to the similar effect, like you don't want 4 Overseers and just be sitting there spinning your wheels. While drawing cards is good, it's not going to win you the game. You need that hardcore, powerful synergy early in a quick best of 1 aggressive environment. Metagame, like that. So it's a good card, but you don't want to just, again, in the mirror match, you don't want to just sit there casting these while your opponent is casting better things like Valkyrie, Angel, and they're generating angels, and then maybe they cast Vito and you're losing life while they're gaining life. So that's kind of my thought on just the numbers of these cards. Like anything with a 4 is just a straight up bomb. Total synergy in the deck, but then we get into some of these lesser things that we've talked about enough. But then lastly, just the 1 copy of Ajani, of course. This is in here. If you're familiar with these mirror matches or this archetype, oftentimes if you play Angel versus Angel, it gets absolutely insane and out of control. If both players can develop their board state quickly, it turns into this massive Cold War where the game state doesn't really progress. Both players are approaching upwards of, can be oftentimes even getting to 1,000 life. So we put in Ajani here just as something to draw to break the mirror match and break that stalemate, because we're using his ultimate, of course, where if we have 15 more life, than our starting life total, which is no problem, of course, for this deck. We can activate his ultimate ability to exile every creature and artifact our opponent controls. So that's the only singleton in the deck. But apart from that, it does help a little bit against control, and you can steal some matches if you can actually survive the war of attrition, and weather the storm of sweepers, and make these cat soldier tokens. It's going to be, again, it's an uphill battle against control, but it does help there as well. It's just a solid card, total synergy in this deck. But again, its primary focus is just to totally break those mirror matches. So that's the deck in a nutshell. Briefly, again, lands. Notably absent. We're not running any, whatever the tri-land is, the Yandatha Triome. We're not going to try to get cute and run anything like that. That we really need to curve out on this deck. We can't afford lands that come into play tapped. We have enough potential that many of them do already. So be very you have to be very conscious of your land drops in this deck. You want to be paying attention to what you have. Ideally, you get access to, of course, all 3 colors as quickly as possible. Like I said, be mindful of getting that second black source, as well as 2 white sources, of course. But the deck is so light on black, again, that it's really not a big commitment to be able to splash Vito. We can hit him off Collected Company, as well as use the Innkeeper's treasures to help us play him. So the mana base isn't really stretched at all. We've got 1 basic, just for some of those effects that allow us to fetch a basic from our deck, so we don't get punked on that, and we can actually get our freebie for the occasional time that does come up. So the lands are pretty well thought out. I don't know, let me know if you think you see anything obvious that I'm missing here, but I think this makes sense. Again, I've been having good results with this, so that's the deck in a nutshell. I hope you enjoyed my random scatterbrained thought process of trying to explain some of the ideas and thoughts behind this deck, as well as some of the basic synergies if you aren't already familiar with this deck. Again, thanks for making it this far and having to listen to me slog through all this. Definitely appreciate watching to the end, though. Again, guys, I'm Sci High. Hope you like the deck. Let me know what you think about it. If you try on the ladder, I wish you all the luck with it. I'd love to hear how you do, or even criticism if you think the deck sucks or think I made a big mistake here. Just let me know anything. But anyways, guys, hope you enjoy the deck, and peace.